If you were looking to learn about panels everywhere, you're in the right spot. If not, hunker down. It won't take too long to get through this. I like to start this session off with kind of a hand raise. Who here has used panels before? Okay, everyone on the left, a couple on the right. Who here has used panels everywhere before? No one. We got one guy. That's it. Okay, great. So this is a whole new realm of using panels. Has anybody tried to use panels on Drupal 8 yet? No one? Good, because I don't think it works. I wanted to see if anybody actually tried it. No. There's a lot of contributed projects that were kind of waiting for RC1. Now that that's landed, things are actually starting to move there. But what's great about Drupal 8 is pretty much everything that I have fallen in love with for panels everywhere is standard on Drupal 8. Drupal 8 core has almost everything that I love about panels everywhere. So this is really for Drupal 7 and maybe for Drupal 8 in the future sometime. But for now, Drupal 7. And let's face it, most of us are stuck supporting sites, even building sites in Drupal 7 for the next couple years. So panels everywhere. First of all, my name's Josh Miller. I am a commerce guy. First, I'm just going to kind of overview what panels is for the people that didn't raise their hands, to maybe for some of the people that are and you're all haters.
What do you mean by commerce guy?
I will get to that. Okay. I will get to that. Then I'm going to show a little bit of how to actually build your first panels everywhere theme. There are some seats like right up in front if y'all want to like do that. Retina burning pink purple going on here. And then I'm going to do a demo where really it is just going to be interactive the whole time. Okay, so if you guys have a question, raise your hand, right? There's never a wrong time to ask a question. I actually speak better when I'm not going for 30 minutes at a time, because then I just kind of go off into a rabbit hole somewhere and got to bring me back. So I already said I was going to get back to that. I'm Josh Miller. I work for Commerce Guys. What does that mean? Commerce. Who here hasn't heard of Commerce Guys? Anybody? Okay, a couple people. Okay, good. We are an international company that builds Drupal commerce. And then, of course, we support Drupal commerce. And we've been around since 2011, 2010. You can quote me on that. I'm sure I got it wrong. I joined the company in 2012 when things were starting to take off with Drupal 7. Now it's been going strong for a long time. We've built out a huge ecosystem of modules. We support all kinds of commerce clients where we build e-commerce situations. So I'm one of the developers here in the US that builds e-commerce sites for Drupal. And it's kind of fun to focus in on one really hard problem to solve, which is e-commerce online. Not just showing a website, but now you're showing a website and saying, please give me money. That can always be challenging. So, and I will touch on a little bit of commerce if you guys are interested. So, Commerce Guys, commerceguys.com. So I wanted to first go over what is panels. And I was thinking about this really hard, and I do like typography a lot, so that's not just like an added weird space there. It's easier to define what isn't panels. So what isn't panels? Sometimes it's just easier to deal with that. It isn't simple. So if you're looking for an easy solution to seemingly simple problems, panels isn't going to be easy, and it's not going to be a simple solution. It certainly isn't default. When you turn it on, much like Drupal, you're not going to get the best experience out of the box. You're going to have to play around with some of the configuration that's hidden away 3 panels deep into the nether regions that no one's ever gone before. And the UI, while functional, isn't necessarily something you're going to like put on your wall and say that's a piece of art. Simple and easy are actually different things, and it's also not easy, nor is it's not simple and it's not easy. Views, I would say, is actually simple, but I don't think it's easy. Panels is neither simple nor easy because it's got a lot of complex problems that it's facing. So now that we know what it isn't, it's not simple, it's not easy, it's not default, it's kind of like most everybody here has probably used views to make like a list of nodes on your site. That's one of the most powerful things you can do on Drupal is you can take content that you've defined, relationships that you've defined with fields, and pull it all together in different ways. That's what Views does. You could do that since the very beginning with some sort of SQL query. I remember doing this back in the 90s with server-side everything, and you're able to make relationships and everything else. A field used to be known as a column in a database table, and now you can take all of the relationships and all the information that Drupal knows about your nodes, about your content, about your users, about your taxonomy, about everything, and it puts it in an interface that you can work with and extend. And that's the bigger part. We don't really care about interfaces. I use command line all the time. I am one of the only designers at Commerce Guys, but I still live in code because sometimes that's the most efficient way to do things. I still use views though because this is actually more efficient than writing SQL statements most of the time. So that's what panels has done to interface. It's a robust interface-driven layout and content builder. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with panels that gives you a lot of really structured, awesome ways in the interface to mess with things that you would normally give to a theme developer who then has to work with PHP TPL files. And I've already lost half of you because, well, I fall asleep doing this and I do this for a living. So panels is fun because it's something you're doing in the interface and it's exportable, and we'll get into all of that. So it's extensible and exportable. What I mean by that, it's a CTools plugin. It was actually originally written by the same guy who wrote Views, Merlin of Chaos. You've heard of him. He started the Views and the Panels project all at the same time and decided he needed something else called CTools. And the three of the biggest modules out there right now that almost every Drupal site uses are Views, Panels, and CTools. So we have a very extensible, exportable thing that defines interfaces. But more importantly, it's not evil. Okay, there's a lot of FUD. Has anybody ever heard that phrase, FUD? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This is something that humanity, for as long as we've been around, there's been FUD. Maybe it's not been called FUD. You know, there's cavemans that don't understand this fire thing that Joe Schmo down the road has figured out. And, you know, they start giving it names, they start worshiping it, but they never touch it. And it's like, once you understand something and how it works, a lot of the fear, a lot of the uncertainty kind of disappears. A lot of the doubt around it disappears. And that's actually why I want to do this session. It's because I feel like Panels is one of those FUD-driven modules that either people love it or hate it, and most of the haters are there because they haven't used it before, or they've tried to use it and the complexity is just a little too much. So it's just mostly misunderstood, okay? And that's really what I want to tell you guys. If you get nothing else from this session today, try Panels. Maybe Panels Everywhere will completely make your next project awesome. So the anatomy of a panel, kind of understanding how these things are put together, can help. First, you start with a template. Now, the templates are based around a set of filters in a way. You can say, I'm going to create a node template, or I'm going to create a node form template, or I'm going to create a taxonomy landing page template. That's just kind of like when you go and build a view, you kind of choose the base table. That's what the template is. It starts with that. And then you can give it conditions, which gives it variants. And there's all these words. It's kind of, I mean, we're in Drupal, so you're going to have to get used to having lots of words. A variant is, let's say you create a template for all nodes. Anytime a node gets displayed in Panels, it gets displayed using this panel. Every time it gets rendered, it's using Panels to do it. When you create a variant, you might say, except when you're looking at a node that has this particular user referenced, then I want it to be displayed this way. And then I want it to be displayed this way. So variants are really strong because you can make references just like a database. You can reference fields that reference objects that then reference more fields that reference more objects. You can go as many levels deep as you want for a condition. And those conditions can help you choose a variant that renders your display. Once the variant is created, you can choose lots of things, including contexts, layout, content. The contexts are there for making a relationship. So if I'm bringing in a profile picture, I might want to relate that to the most recent blog post that that person has produced. And then I can bring it in. Not using views at all, I'm just using panels to bring in related content. That's context. Layout's really cool. This is why I think this is the most powerful thing you can do to Drupal, which is panels everywhere. Because this doesn't happen on the theme layer ever. You can get Omega, you can get Display Suite. They all try, but they all end up in like this little piece of the box, or like Omega, at least 3. I'm not really familiar with Omega 4. It becomes like this massive dump of variables that you have no idea what you're doing with the different layouts, and there's no visual to it. You literally choose, with panels everywhere, you literally choose a layout for your site. And if you recall, we're inside of a variant. So that means certain content types could have different, completely different layouts. And you don't have to have a different view for this. You're just using panels and you're variating them based on conditions. So layouts are probably the single most important thing to a panels everywhere situation, because that gives you complete control over the full layout. We're talking header, footer, we're talking all of the things. The particular module I'm using here with panels is called Radix. It's being used on lots of different install profiles that are out there. It's basically uses a stripped down bootstrap column capability so that it's totally responsive. So out of the box, you can choose a layout for your site, and it's totally responsive. Once you've chosen a layout, you go into the content, and this is, I mean, it's a really tiny screenshot, and it's just horribly presented with our little color problem, but you can kind of see that there's a couple of different boxes there, and in our demo, we're going to get in a little bit deeper. But this doesn't even begin to describe, this just begins to describe what you can do with one box called user login, which on a Drupal standard site, if you're not logged in, you're presented with a little login in the sidebar. You can disable the pane, you can put a condition on it that disables it. You can install panels plugins. I mentioned extensible. You can install panels plugins that let you change this. For Bootstrap, there's probably panels plugins for Bootstrap. You could choose the kind of style. Do you want it to be a well? Do you want it to be a panel? Do you want it to be a list group? You can change the style on how that block is actually rendered. And you're doing this all through the UI in a way that your developers at the end of the day can click export and they can deploy in seconds. It's very, very cool that you can do this. So that's what panels is. And to jump into a little bit more about like how do I use panels everywhere, I think we all kind of need a little bit of a refresher. I do every time I open up Drupal and I want to start messing with something, of how the theme layer works. This is a very, very, very 30,000-foot overview. There's a lot more going on here than these 3 pieces, but we're going to go through it really quickly. First, you have index.php. When you first go to a site, if everything goes well with Drupal, it asks index.php. No matter what your URL is, it asks index.php, what am I doing? And index.php says, okay, lots of stuff happened, database is loaded, and I'm being told to use html.tpl.php. This was added in 7. In Drupal 6, we had the same process, but the head and foot and everything else was something more like hard-coded. So you couldn't do things like JSON responses without a lot of hoops and everything. Drupal 7, you can do lots more than just HTML. But this is what's loaded first, and that kind of wraps your body tag in HTML. And then page TPL is everything that's inside of your body tag. Okay? That's a standard theme. Everything you've ever built on Drupal has this setup, whether you've known it or not. So inside of that page TPL, you have regions, which then include blocks. Inside that TPL, you have variables, and if you want to change those variables, you use preprocessed functions. It's a standard Drupal theme. All themes do this. That's good and well and awesome, but this doesn't allow us to use panels. So Panels Everywhere takes the same paradigm and changes one thing. It's got an index, it's got an HTML. Those two things are the same. And one of the things I want to say out there right now, the reason I'm doing this session too is because I've tried to do this before. I just wanted to try to see what it was like. I couldn't find documentation on this. And it's something I said in Drupal Camp Asheville about a month ago. I still intend to do it. I think this just needs to be documented and more people would use it because it's just not documented out there. So it uses the same two things that the typical theme has, but the third one's different. It uses a layout. And if you recall, the layout is the thing that I was choosing in Panels. It's just a Panels variant. And you can have a layout TPL as many times as you want for every variant that you want as well. And each layout has regions, which we're all really familiar with. And instead of Drupal just filling the variables with blocks, Drupal is then letting Panels determine what that sidebar looks like. And that's any content inside of Panels. So that's, and I'll show you in the demo as well. When you go to add content, just out of the box, Panels has maybe 600-700 different kinds of things you can add onto any one page for any one variant. With just standard Drupal out of the box, you might have 20 blocks that are predefined. You can create a custom block if you turn on the block module. But custom blocks are limited in fields. You can't add files. You can't do things in a structured way. So anything inside of Panels, including related content and that kind of stuff, all gets rendered into the regions. And then we have the token system, which is huge in Drupal 7. Every module that's out there is defining these tokens because it's a core ideal that came from Drupal 6, ended up into Drupal 7 core. Everything that is possibly tokenized is available to just drop in at the drop of a hat, literally, in layout. And you don't get that with page TPL. But also, if you are a themer and you're used to preprocessed functions, you can still mess with Panels outside of the UI using your functions, and it'll work as you expect. Okay, so now that we know kind of what Panels is, how the theme layer works, I want to talk a little bit about how you would take a theme and turn Panels Everywhere on. Because that was my biggest, I don't want to touch this because if I do it wrong, my screen goes white and I don't know how to undo it. That was my biggest concern. Because when you start saying to one module, you control the whole of Drupal, you start to kind of give it a little bit too much power. You're a little bit nervous, you get a little uncertainty, there's definitely some doubt there. I'm starting to kind of sweat, so there's a little bit of fear there. And the only way to do it is just to try. I've gone a little too far in this presentation, so I've learned something since I did it the last time at Drupal Camp Asheville. You don't even really need any of this, okay? The how-to is simply go get a theme and turn on Panels Everywhere. It'll just work. You're going to see content. It's going to be kind of wonky. It's going to be really hard to change, and that's where I pick up here. But you can just turn it on. And in the demo, I'm just going to straight up turn it on into Bootstrap 3. I've enabled the Bootstrap 3 theme that you can just download. It's one of the more downloaded themes that's out there on Drupal.org. And it does just work. When you want to start modifying things, that's when this comes in. So how to make a theme available to Panels Everywhere. There's really just a couple things you need to worry about. You need to change 1 or 2 lines in theme.info. I recommend you look at your HTML TPL and change a few things there. And then you just add some custom CSS and JavaScript, if you want. And you add some custom layouts, if you want. You can also use Radix. You could use any of the layouts that come with Panels, though Panels out of the box isn't responsive. Fair warning. You could even create custom panes. There's all kinds of things that are customizable inside of Panels. Just like Views uses fields, Panels uses panes and other really cool, there's a whole ecosystem of Panels plugins that are out there in the Drupal world that you've never heard about because you probably never built a Panels Everywhere site and haven't needed them. So to create a simple theme, this is a base theme based on Bootstrap. This is everything that normally comes out of theme.info, except I've added one thing down at the very bottom here where I'm telling Panels what kind of page manager version I'm using, and I'm giving it 2 paths. I'm giving it the path to the page's default, and I'm giving it the path to the layouts. That can be really handy because once you've got that involved, you can actually create custom layouts and control the actual output of Drupal all the way from the body tag to the end of the body tag. You can control everything, and it still is rendered using panels. I feel like that's magical because I get both the UI building aspect and total code control. So HTML.tpl.php. TippleFip, has anybody ever heard that? I've got a developer friend who calls it TippleFip, and I think that's kind of funny. So TippleFip, HTML TippleFip, you can copy that from anywhere in the system module or a base theme or whatever. I just grabbed mine from Bootstrap, and then I added some custom CSS a little bit. You can customize your layout. Now this is really important. This is part of the documentation I want to put out there. Layouts seem kind of, again, fuddish. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Why would I care about layouts? We'll get there. But you basically just have a .inc with an array. That's it. You're missing a little open PHP line right there, but that's it. And then you need a TippleFip for the layout. You give it the header, the div, the section, whatever you want. I literally stole the one that I'm using in the demo straight from Bootstrap, page TPL. You just change like 3 variables and it works. A custom pane. Now, there are some pieces of Drupal that were never designed to be blocks. At least they aren't in Drupal 7. Drupal 8, we made them all blocks. But in Drupal 7, there are just pieces that weren't blockizable at the time. And those pieces, panels will give you as blocks in the form of custom panes. And there's a pane message, there's a pane content, and I think there's a pane header and footer. And that gives you the standard, like if somebody uploads a logo to your theme, that's where the logo comes from, is inside that pane dash header. Pane dash messages includes the tabs where you click view, edit, whatever. Same thing with the messages and the help and all of that. So you just enable it, drush cc all a couple times sometimes. That's necessary, and that's it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do a demo. I'm going to walk through some of this. Do you have any questions? None? Oh, go for it.
How would you contrast panels everywhere and Panoply?
Panoply, kind of the bread and butter of Panoply is that you can use panels on a per node basis. So you create an About Us page and you can choose a layout for your About Us page and that kind of thing. Panoply does use panels for everything. I don't know that it actually uses panels everywhere. I'm going to guess it does because it's so simple and it makes sense that they would. But Panoply is a base install that a lot of distributions are currently using. About the biggest one that isn't using it is Commerce Kickstart 2, which is the biggest Drupal install out there. So panels everywhere is probably part of Panoply. If it's not, it should be. But there's a reason Panoply is so popular. There's a reason Acquia uses it for their is it a demo framework? Is that what it's called? DF. Drupal.org/project/df. Download it, install it. It will blow your mind. Acquia's probably landed a bunch of clients with that particular module. It's not even a module, it's a site install. But it uses panels everywhere. It uses Panoply. It uses lots of other stuff that puts web development in the UI. So that's a good question. Any others? I'm going to keep going. All right. So this is my Panels Everywhere demo site. I just want to put a quick plug out there. If I haven't already plugged Commerce Guys enough. We have a product called platform.sh, and what I've been using it for, at least for this particular instance, is I've built up a dev site, which by the way you can get for free right now. You just go to platform.sh and sign up. You get a month for free. Don't have to put your credit card in. And you do that. You spin it up. You install just a simple Drupal 7 site with panels everywhere and a couple other pieces. And I will show you the other pieces here as soon as I get out of the exit presentation mode. This is actually, I believe as strongly for panels everywhere as I do for the project.make way of building sites. I should probably just do a whole session on that too. Project.make, this just kind of blows my mind that you can do this. You can take a file, kind of like a .config if you're used to Composer, and you can take all of your modules, including Drupal core. You can assign it like 0.40 right now. 40 is the most recent one, so I could just change that right now. All of the modules that I need for this demonstration are right here. So I'm including Devel because I like it, Views because I need it, Panels because you need it for panels everywhere. And then I've got a couple other pieces that I just like having, jQuery update for Bootstrap. It's all defined right here, so if there's a security update, I update one line, and then platform. You could do this with Docker. I've seen Docker do this as well. With one line, I then deploy. It just deploys directly to my GitHub, which then builds up the whole site, and then I can make duplicates of that branch. So I'm actually going to be building off of my core blocks branch, and when I'm done here, and I go to the next camp where I'm going to give the same session, I'm just going to blow away this whole site and copy it from master and start over again. So it's kind of fun to do development like that, because each branch in your development has different websites. So Panels Everywhere demo, I have a nice list of it here for this reason. I'm using Panels 3.5, Panels Everywhere 1.0 RC2. I haven't actually checked to see if these are the most recent. They were the most recent a month ago. Entity, rules, that's about it. There's nothing else really magical here. If you recall, I mentioned one major limitation of the Drupal core block system is you can't upload files to blocks. You can't add fields to blocks. That's another Drupal 8 thing that they've done. They're config entities now in Drupal 8. But in Panels Everywhere, you can make panes that are reusable, which are just like blocks. But fieldable panel panes are even cooler because those are fieldable panel panes, which took me a while to figure out what does that even mean. It means you can create blocks with as many fields as you want, and you can reuse them all the time. Or you could say create a particular variant of your site called homepage and create a particular slideshow pane where your client literally just has to click edit and is presented with a couple fields where she uploads or he uploads different images and gives them different descriptions and puts a link in there. And it's just like a fielded homepage, which is, I can't tell you how many content types I've seen called homepage that have done the same thing. I feel like that's just horrible to use a node for one page. I don't know why. Maybe someone else can say that that's wrong, but using fieldable panel panes has like changed my life when it comes to giving a client an easy way to log in and just simply click edit.
How does that compare to Bean?
What's that?
How does that compare to using Bean? That's what Bean.
Bean is painful. Bean is very, very, very painful. That's the only thing I can describe it, because once you go Bean, then you go and use context, which context is just an abused word in Drupal. But context is, at least in this case, is being used to display blocks based on conditions, which is what Bean was built for, so that you could, basically everyone's tried to solve this problem multiple different ways. Bean's one of them, and it exists in a different ecosystem. I would recommend Panels Everywhere, and then you don't even have to worry about Bean because it's got weird stuff going on. In fact, I think the last time I tried to use Bean, it was like 3 years old, which I feel like in Drupal that's kind of abandoned at that point. And there's probably 5 or 6 bugs that have at least been posted, if not fixed, and not actually submitted. So, good question. Bean does try very, very, very hard to make blocks content. And you could spend all night tonight, all day tomorrow having all kinds of bike shedding conversations of whether blocks, like a logo, is either content or is it configuration. We decided not to answer that with Drupal 8. We just made it configuration entity, which is kind of a middle ground. It's an entity, but it's configuration. Okay, so, and I'm using Radix layouts, Radix, I don't know how to pronounce that. And I'm even including, this is what's great about project.makes as well. Drush supports that. You just do drush make, and it'll download all of these and give you a folder with your whole site build right there. you can include patches, and patches really help you not. You can edit anything in core you want as long as you put it in a patch, and then it's totally documented, because in my repo I have a folder called patches, and I can modify any of the sites I want, and I just keep track of those patches, and every time I build it, it tries to reapply that patch. If I update radix layouts and they've applied my patch, then I can get rid of this. Fantastic for project.make. So again, this is just a Drupal 7 site. I've got one extra block added, and it's a Bootstrap 3 site. And I'm using some sort of admin menu thing that's beautiful. I don't even remember what it is, but it's so much better than admin menu. So to go, and this is just Bootstrap 3. I haven't enabled any other sub module. This is all you really need to do to get started. You enable panels, and you enable panels everywhere. And then you go to the panels everywhere settings page. Side note, this is where panels just goes crazy. There are plenty of pages inside of panels, like this general settings page, where there's nothing there. It just depends on what you have enabled, whether something shows up or not. Do not dismay. There are menu items with things there, like one single checkbox. And when you enable the panels everywhere checkbox, it gives you a couple other options. If you click or decide to keep the provide a sample variant for site template, I recommend that, particularly if you're doing what I'm doing, which is enabling a theme to be panels everywhere that was never built to do panels everywhere. Otherwise, you really will get a white screen of death. It's checked by default, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. I don't recommend checking these two things just because I think that's kind of crazy. I don't know why you'd want to do site templates on a per theme basis, but it's there if you need it. And I don't know why you'd want to do panels everywhere for admin themes. I feel like there's some really good ones out there. Why muck with layout? But if you really needed like a great dashboard experience, it would be fantastic for that. So I'm just going to click save. Hope it doesn't blow up because we're actually on a live website and turning on a scary module. I'm going to click home. And some of the default Bootstrap theming isn't there, mostly because there's CSS selectors that are no longer functioning as CSS selectors. But we've still got the logo. We've got a couple menus that come in by default, and I've got a red block. And I put the red block in there because I feel like you kind of need to see what's going on with the layout, and I'm going to move that around here in a second. So to get into the layout, you just go into panels. And when you go into panels, you see all these templates, these pages. And you can create custom layouts. You can go in here to layouts and click on add flexible layout. I've seen a lot of people actually do this. They build their site inside the UI, and then you can export it. That's one way to go about it. I like having control of the code. But the variant that it gives us, you just click edit. You don't have to know a whole lot else because it's done it for you. They've called this variant sample variant, but you could call this my home page or my site, and then you do another variant called homepage. When you go to the summary, you can see that it's already overridden. There's some changes that I've made to it already in a previous site, and it's kept those in the database. General, there's a couple things in here that you might want to do. You might want to put a CSS ID. I think that comes by default. I have no idea why. This is really fun. Panels Everywhere does this. It adds CSS code to your panel. Highly unrecommended. Don't do that. Stop doing that. Don't let it happen. Whoever put this in panels should be at least talked to. So anyway, it's there if you really, really need it. I'm not going to mess with it because it's just a generic demo. Selection rules is what I was talking about earlier. There's all kinds of filters you can put on there based on the node bundle that you're looking at, and throw some PHP code in there, but why would you? Taxonomy terms that are selected based on the content you're looking at. You can even do like one based on the current theme. If you're using theme key and your user login page uses a completely different theme, you could use this variant to put it out there. So contexts are what I was talking about, where you can do relationships. You can add relationships to just about anything in the system. So if you were to add commerce in here, you could have a relationship to the product when you're looking at a product page based on the SKU. And then once you've put in these relationships, it starts giving you some really great tokens that you can use. Like you can tokenize the URL for the user, which is something a lot of people try to do for user menus, and it's been really troublesome to do that. Built-in contexts, that kind of thing, things that people are using. The layout is where the moneymaker is. I like using the Moscone because it's kind of a standard Drupal template, but we could pick any of these. In fact, I will, just to play around with it. So let's go with a weird one, Sanderson. I like that these are named too. What did you use? Well, I used Radix Sanderson. Okay, you click continue. Now Panels is going to try to convert what you had to what you are going to do based on regions. That's pretty cool. So I know like my content area is probably going to be in the middle column. My footer area, I'm actually going to put it on my right side there. Sidebar I'm going to put here. Now this is just like pumped up weird stuff that you can do with layouts and panels that you just can't do with a standard Drupal site. So inside this is every block that's on my system right now. And this is what kind of threw me through the loop when I first did panels everywhere. This right here is what panels normally negotiates. Everything inside the page body. Everything outside of that, that's your theme layer. That's everything that's outside. That's what's controlling your whole site. So with panels everywhere, you get to control the whole thing, which means there's a checkbox when you create a standard panel called Hide Content Blocks. You don't need to do that anymore. You can actually create a variant that just doesn't have the blocks where you want it. You could even potentially make a particular, what do they call it? Selection rule. I was going to say filter. You can use a selection rule to say, do I have any sidebar content? It would have to be a custom one, but you could do it. And then you change the layout completely based on the sidebar content. So I'm going to go ahead and click save and see how this works, see if my block moves a little bit. Okay, so I moved some things, I changed navigation around, the header's kind of where it was. If you want to go through and change it again, you can go into, I want to flush caches because there's a menu item I want to use to kind of show you. While it's flushing, any questions? Once you've installed panels, it gives you, that stinks, it's not showing up. It gives you a menu item where you can just click on Site Template and it just takes you straight here. But it's not showing up for me. So anyway, when you go into content, this is, to me, this is like you click edit on your site and you should see something like this. Or maybe the client wants to see something like this. So you can actually drag, which drag and drop's always fun when you're using a mouse that's not a mouse. Click update and save, move everything over to the other column. See, they showed up there. And I'm just gonna go back to home. Everything moved over. There's a great little plugin layout for panels where you can just literally click edit on this and it will let you drag and drop inside the interface. That's a little too Inception for me. I'm not sure what it would do, so there's a little fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I have there as well. But this red block, this is something panels can do that core system blocks can't do. And it's duplicating blocks. There's lots of use cases for this. But I really want to drive it home what you can do. So if you click on panels and you click on edit, we're going to add the same block into the system. And when you go to add content, you can just select a region. Let's say my row 3 here, I want to add that red block back in there. Now this is all of the hundreds of pieces of content you can add into your site. You can go in there and take a look at who's new. Some of the blocks are there, some of them aren't. I have don't remember which one's which. We're just going to add test description, see if that's it. Finish. I think that's my red block. We'll click home to see what it does. Yeah. So this is the same block. If I were to go and edit and change the color, it'll change it on both of them. Yes, inline CSS. Don't do this. We're going to change the background color to green. And I always click save on that form, and I don't know why. Okay, so you can see that it's actually duplicating this block, which could be really, really useful if you're needing to duplicate blocks for responsive reasons. Maybe you need to have two menus in the same spot. Right now you can't really do that with Drupal blocks core. You can here. Any other questions? Note that the sidebar top block there has all my messages instead of all the way across. Thoughts, excitement, falling asleep. There's got to be coffee somewhere. All right. Without any questions, this is the demo. I think we're going to call it done. There you go.